Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, I'm getting this one out for you a little bit late on Friday. Sorry about the confusion. There's just been super swamped, and I've got plenty to load out. Should have done it earlier, but I didn't, so now you're getting it today. So don't forget, check out our sponsors, VWTrendsMagazine.com. The latest issue came out. Austin McCabe on the cover. Congratulations to my dog for that hard work he put into his car and gracing the cover of VW Trends Magazine. Now, also, don't forget our other sponsor, Ross Wolf. High quality aftermarket parts made for VW enthusiasts by enthusiasts. So go check them out at rosswolf.com. Pick out some of their super dope, fresh stuff. Their velocity stacks, dipsticks, pulleys, you name it, they got it, and they keep coming out with more stuff. So stay tuned with some upcoming product features that we're going to have with those guys, what they got coming out. So shout out to my guys at Ross Wolf. Go check them out today at rosswolf.com. Today's podcast is Rob O'Rourke, or otherwise known as Rourky O'Rourke. He is with O'Rourke Coach Trimmers out of the UK. Top-notch work these guys do. Check out their YouTube channel. They do some phenomenal work on early Ferraris and exotic cars like that. Lamborghinis, you name it. These guys replicate, duplicate, and do better than the original factory work on these high-end Italian sports cars. Well, this was one of the Type 34 Ghias that I saw at the Air Mighty show, and this car was unbelievable. If you saw my YouTube video, which there'll be a link down below that you can check it out, where I do a little detailed walk around the car, and you can see a lot of the stuff that he did to this thing. You can tell that Rob is a master of attention to detail. He's one of the top coach trimmers in the UK. Again, focus on most exotic stuff, but he's a VW guy. Loves the Type 34, loves the lines, really got creative with the interior, and I love to see cars like this that push the envelope and really bring something different to the table, not the same old stuff that you see on every car. So check out the video, listen to the podcast, and this is the build story about this Volkswagen. So super cool Type 34, built to use, and it's really high-end looking on the inside. A lot of custom touches. One of the unique things that he did was on the Type 34 Ghia, there's a body line on the hood that kind of pops up, and then it stops at the top of the cowl. Well, he continued that across the top of the cowl down to the rear to match up with the rear same bodywork that's on the trunk lid. So it's pretty rad. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. He's got a really unique style, which is one of the things that really drew me to his car. And then after meeting him, man, he's such a champ of a dude, man. Just an outrageous guy. If you ever get a chance to meet him face to face, solid cat. Definitely a dude you want to sit down and chat with, because he's a good time all the time. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into it this week. Rob Rourky O'Rourke and his unbelievable Type 34 Ghia on Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like.
Okay, everybody. So on today's podcast, I'm bringing you guys the podcast that I was doing out here in Holland when I went to the Air Mighty show. And out here roaming the floor, there's a lot of unique cars. And I saw a car roll in that this guy drove here to the show. And I looked at it and I thought, there's two of these cars similar in color. And this one's all haggard because it's covered in bugs and all this stuff, because this guy's hardcore and he drove his car here. And then I got a second look at it today. And this is a really, really detailed 1964 Type 34 carbon Ghia. And that car was built by our guest today, Rourky O'Rourke, and he's out of Sussex.
My business is in West Sussex, and I live in Surrey.
So you live in Surrey. So, Rourky, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you've built a beautiful Type 34 Ghia out here. Has it been featured in the magazine out here?
Yeah, not Hayburn. It was featured in.
So it's featured in Hayburn, and it's quite a unique car. And to some of you guys that be looking at, you'll be looking at some pictures that I post on Instagram and Facebook about this car, but it's really, really unique. And it, starting off with the Type 34, it's a unique car to start with. And your car really has a lot of really special features to it. But I want to go to the beginning of this, because clearly this isn't your first rodeo. And when I saw the car and talked to a few people about you, you've been in the scene for a little while. We spoke about it. And the way we always start the podcast is, what's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
I think my VW story, my sister had a Volkswagen as her first car.
Yeah.
And I remember being taken out with her in it, and I had to behave myself. And it was a natural progression. When she moved on to a Ford Fiesta, I got her old Volkswagen Beetle.
Nice.
Which I painted the wheels pink, painted the body turquoise, and then wrapped it around a lamppost.
Oh, no.
With 3 of my friends in it.
Wow.
And that was the introduction of my car. Then to feel the guilt after writing a car off and to have to walk for 8 months while your parents help you buy your second car, which was another Volkswagen Beetle, it taught me a good lesson in just slowing down,
right,
and reading the road.
Yeah, and take care of it.
I was intent on making that car better. So then I de-seamed it, put suicide doors on it, and my dad went nuts. He came into work on the Monday. I've been working all weekends, and I've cut the doors off and I've changed the hinges around. He went ape shit. And was your father in the automotive industry? So my father runs a company called Motor Technique, which specialises in Ferrari restoration. So as this podcast goes out in 2023, my dad's 75 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he puts V8 engines, Ferrari V8 engines in V6 Dinos.
Oh, really?
That's his speciality. So he resto mods them. He lives by not paying any attention to the rules.
I love it.
He likes to build cars that he felt Enzo would have built had he had the budget.
Yeah.
But so
you come from an automotive background.
Yeah, I've been very lucky.
And having a dad who's into like Italian performance, and he's looking at you. You're starting with this Volkswagen, and then
he thought I was gay.
and you're sitting. The crazy part is, we talked about this a little bit because we're the same age. So you're a child of the '80s, and kind of starting to build that Volkswagen. It's flashy colors, it's this, it's that, and it's taking this old relic and making it like modern, right? It's cool suicide doors, trick paint, all this stuff. And it's really, you're kind of at odds with your dad. Your dad's like, I don't understand this kid. Why is he doing this stuff to this worthless Beetle? Yeah, he's like, put your time, energy in something that's worth money. Is that kind of his disposition?
Yeah, maybe, but I've never had the money. I had the time back then, but never the money.
Right.
And I was low on ability. So by doing these projects, you're teaching yourself how to weld. When I first learnt to weld, I was looking over a very experienced man's shoulder, watching him MIG. I didn't see him turn the gas on. I didn't see him close his eyes every time he pulled the trigger. So I was not turning the gas on and staring at the blue light as I was welding my dashboard up and making it all smooth and losing the glove box. So I've learnt the hard way. Yeah. And even doing the Type 34, it was great because you're honing your skills, making door skins. I've made the complete back end of the car, and really enjoyed enhancing my skills.
Now so by trade, you're an interior fitter. You do restorations on Ferraris.
So when I was a young lad, when I was 13, my school holidays were I never had anyone looking after me, so I had to go to work with my dad. Mm-hmm. And then I used to hang out there, so I'd learn metalwork, go and help the paint shop, but my love was the interiors because the leather smells, the glue. It was a better high. You could levitate better on the gluey leather, and so I really enjoyed. And also, if you work 8 hours, if you're making headrests or doing seats, you get a lot of satisfaction by what you've created in 8 hours. You can visually see it.
Yeah.
So I like the reward of that, and working with my father has led on to what I do now, which is the interiors, which I started when I was 32 years old. And
one of the things, so to give you guys a visual description of the car, the color of the car is,
it's
like a diamond green.
A goldeny green, I would say.
Yeah.
Is closest.
So it's almost like Volkswagen had a diamond green in the 50s, 1957. They had diamond green.
It's quite close to an Aston Martin-y sort of green, maybe a bit more golden.
And so when you see this car, it's on the 17-inch Urskas. Is that what the wheels that are on it?
Radars.
17-inch radars. It's the golden green. The wheels are painted like a gold color, right?
Same as the C-post.
Yeah, so it's painted the gold, same as like the C-post in the car. And you've got a lot of a lot of detailed pieces. All the trim is nickel plated,
Yeah.
which is kind of giving that little bit of a bronze kind of vibe to it.
It works well with the green, but it's fatter, it's thicker than chrome. So everything you do when you nickel it,
Right.
like the catches on the quarter lights and the rear windows, you then enter a world of problems because
just gotta
things
sit
don't
there
go back together.
with a Dremel tool and clean
Yeah.
everything out.
So you have to lower the gauge of everything before you nickel it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have to do the pre-work before you start doing that.
Lots of pre-work, yes.
So to give you guys the visual, like all the bright work on this car is nickel plated, so it's really got a unique look to it. I mean, this car stands off on its own, which is what I love. And in a world of people that do things different but the same, this car is really unique, and that's really one of the things that caught my eye about it. And the more I looked at it, there were things that I looked at that I thought, well, and a question we talked about it, right? So on the Type 34 Ghia, you've got the leather dash that integrates into the door sides, and then it stops at the rear tray. Mm-hmm. And then in your car, you did the rear dash pad to match the front dashboard, and I didn't get it when I looked at it. And I said, well, I'd have rolled the seat color back over into the dash, and then you told me from your background work on Italian cars, they have like the front and rear dash are the same, and there's like a black wainscot around the whole top of the car, which then after looking at it, it makes a lot of sense. And it's funny how when I'm looking at it and I don't get it, and then you just explain to me your reference point of where your inspiration comes from, then it all falls into place. It makes total sense. And so now I completely appreciate it. And I'm not going to say I'm going to steal it from my car, but I do like the look of it. And with those cars being, because it's interesting, right? They were built by a German company, designed by an Italian designer. And you could tell the way that they were, they were trying to, Volkswagen, I think at the time, thought maybe we could build a sports car. But when you've spent so much time branding yourself as the econo car person, maybe people don't really respect the Type 34. Well, not that. People, when it's the same money as the 356, they were just going and buying a 356. When this car was actually, in a way, I think a little more refined than a 356. And you said, because you've got experience restoring 356s, and this car, you said that this car seems a bit higher quality than the 356.
Yeah, in early 90s, probably I sold my Volkswagen Beetle with suicide doors and a Larry paint job to buy a 356A 1959. Yeah. And I restored that, and that was when I wasn't good enough to repair the front, and I needed a lot of help. And I sold that car to buy my first house. Since then, I've also restored a 356B, and the Type 34 has been a much more intrinsic car to restore. How the air cooling works at the back and the water tray, all the one-off parts. It's a much superior car to a 356.
It seems like a lot more refinement that they thought were the thought process when they designed and engineered it is that it was going to go into the hands of lots of thousands of people, and so they had to build it with the drain trays, with the dual. Like, it wouldn't be important for Porsche; they didn't care about carrying luggage in the rear.
Yeah.
But on this car, having a trunk both front and rear made more challenging.
Driving the car over here from England, I just feel it's such a balanced car, from space, from head height to leg room, to space in the back of the car for your personal belongings, in the boot, above the engine in the rear. There's just so much space. To me, I'm yet to see a better proportion car of the era.
Oh yeah,
and it's such an overlooked car.
I think, and I agree with you. I've had the conversation with several people that I believe that car is the most refined Volkswagen built, and they're really, I believe, in my opinion, way undervalued. I think I currently hold the record for the most expensive one sold, and mine. I sold one in the States for $70,000 back in 2016 or 17, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
But since then, of course, then everybody sees one sell and they all increase their prices. And now in the secondhand market, they're all absolutely insane.
But to restore a car for £70,000, you wouldn't.
It only took me 90 to sell it for 70.
Oh, well done.
so
I could do that.
Yeah. Anybody can do that. But the difference is closing the gap, right? Yeah. And with mine at the time, I did mine really different. Leather interior and some other things that I felt kind of fitted the car. Now your business's interior, and they call it, what's the term for it here? We call it interior
coach trimming.
Coach trimming, right?
That word dates back from horse and carriage, when carriages would have had curtains put in there, make the seats more comfortable. Those guys were coach trimmers. And my website is coachtrimmers.com.
And I mean, you know, you let me sit in the car, and there's a lot of really cool. I love the carpet you did because it looks the vintage, but it's not German square weave, because everything you see is German square weave. I know that you originally would, when you decided to build the car, what was your starting point for building the car?
When you say starting point, I bought it off a beautiful man called Steve Custance, who was going to build the car himself, and he had an accident and broke his pelvis. And it was just too much for him to continue, so he sold it as a go-in project, and it had all of his desires. It had a right-hand drive dash, the radar wheels, independent rear suspension. So I bought a box of bits, and I kind of built the car he was building, and then I put my own twist on it as we've gone along.
Now, when you decided to make the decision for paint color, all that stuff, what was the first? Because normally, you know, somebody starts with an exterior color. I'm going gumball blue, and they build off of that. Where did you start?
Sometimes, if you take a 356 Porsche, for instance, they just look great in a light metallic. And if you had a Ferrari 250 Tour de France or a California, you can kind of kill it if you painted it yellow.
Yeah.
And some cars with the sharp lines lend themselves to a metallic. You can really see the different arenas of shapes.
Yeah.
And some cars, they don't lend themselves. So I think the 356, it was always going to be that kind of metallic. And I wasn't set on green until I found my interior colour. And then I knew what direction I wanted to go in, because it's got greens and golds in it.
And it's quite a unique piece of fabric. What would you call that?
I bought that from America. It's like a plaid fabric.
But I mean the texture, the texture of that fabric. It's like a tweed or like a woven. A woven piece.
I don't know what it's made out of.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's got a stiff texture.
Feel,
yeah. But it definitely fits the era of the 60s, because you could see that in like a Lincoln or a Cadillac or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it kind of has a high-end interior look.
Yeah, but I'm kind of at a place with interiors where everyone's done diamond stitching, everyone's done the latest fads of stitching. And I wanted to go back, so I've taken my inspiration of a Mercedes Gullwing. They have raised pleats with a double stitch line in the centre. So where my double stitch line is on a Mercedes, I've put a 1 centimetre strip of folded edge vinyl.
Oh, down the middle?
In the centres to separate them. And if I told you how much those seats cost in terms of hours and redoing them and not being happy and doing them again, my steering wheels probably cost most people's restorations in terms of the steering wheel.
That's insane.
But the seats, but I've thoroughly enjoyed doing them.
And one thing I noticed about your seats is, with the production cars, the Volkswagens, they never really they were production. They made everything to fit close enough. They were assembled in a high speed fashion, and those types of things. The Type 34 was different because it was assembled at a different plant, and a little more care put into it because it was on the Type 3 platform, which was more of a sophisticated car. But your seats fit probably the tightest I've ever seen a set of seats fit. And where you have to be careful with the Type 34 is the seat base is so large. And you would know, it's really large to me compared to, like, especially Italian cars, stuff like that. It's a really wide seat base. And if you overstuff it, I mean, the thing will look like a marshmallow that you're sitting on, right? Yeah. So you've done a job where, just those seats and their cloth, right? And maybe that's and I'll ask this question as an interior fitter, as a coach trimmer. You can't really stretch fabric like you can vinyl, right? You can always heat up vinyl and stretch it a lot easier than you can with a fabric. And your seats are fabric on top and sides. Yeah. So for them to fit that tight, that had to be a job to wrap those springs. It's
tailor-made like a suit, and I've always got little mini devils sitting on my shoulders of other people judging my work, which keeps me good. And I work with a lot of other very good coach trimmers, so we all spur each other on. Yeah. And I like to try and do something that pushes the boundaries. Like my steering wheel doesn't have a centre stitch line; it's just made out of circles of fabric. Yeah. And to do the mathematics of making that, it's so I like to. So someone could see, some people sit in a car and they don't actually never appreciate how a steering wheel is stitched, how the sun visors work, how the seats are made. And I like someone who's got that kind of brain to sit in my car and think, wow, that's
you've
hours into that.
And especially with the Type 34, it's funny, in the world of Volkswagen restorers, that's the most regular car of all the cars. Like restoring a Beetle is almost like putting together a snap together kit, right? I mean, it doesn't require the attention to detail. And so they're so basic. Everybody puts all the detail in the chrome hardware and the this and the that. But when it comes to fitting the Type 34, I mean, the door, you've got 4 or 5 body lines to line up between the contours and the verticals, the lowers and all that. And then when you open it up, that Type 34 has got that really odd interior swoop on the door sill, you know, on the inside the front of the door. And you've wrapped yours in vinyl, similar to like what the factory did. And it just looks, with the VW, and especially with what's available in the restoration market, they always look a little unfinished. Your car looks finished. Your car looks finished and then thought after. Like when I got in there, you have a foot bar on the passenger side that's wrapped. I mean, it's like, it's not just a foot bar that was thrown there. It looks like it was built for the car. Like it belongs there, you know? And there's a lot of things with cars that when you see them restored, you look at it and you think, oh, well, this doesn't make sense, or that, you know, what is the purpose of this? But once you told me your background and having, you know, kind of your wheelhouse is working on Italian cars, now everything started to fit together. And every time I looked at it, I thought, oh, I could see that in a Ferrari. I could see that here. So it's interesting because you've done door pockets on the door panels. You've done an additional add-on piece, a sculpted piece on the side, like a decorative piece coming down the side.
Which follows the shape of the outside line that goes up the wheel arch.
Yeah. So you did a lot of tying in some of that distinctive, you know, kind of swoop body line that's at the rear quarter. You've followed that throughout the car. And I really like, there's so many details to this car, and you guys will go on the, you know, you go on the blog page and you'll look at the detailed pictures that I took of this car, because there's just so much to look at on this car, a lot of detail that, and what's interesting is most people just walk past it and overlook half of it, because they might see something that they didn't like. Now the bumpers, you did something really unique with the bumpers. So the bumpers, I looked at them at first and I couldn't really tell what was going on because I saw this stripe on there, and then I looked at the top and it almost looked like the nickel, but then I realized it was body painted.
Yeah, the car came with some bumpers that were all freshly made from Indonesia or...
Yeah, the stainless steel ones, yeah.
They were great. And then I kept looking back at the original ones that came with the car, and they were pretty awful state. So I had them shot blasted, had the chrome removed, and then I welded 3 pieces together to make it a 1-piece bumper. And then I've welded all around the sides of them so they fit the contour of the car.
So you built them up to fit?
Yeah, welded all around the sides. And then we painted them body colour. We've had the nerf bars nickeled, and then I've wrapped them in. It's almost like a L section aluminium right around, and had that nickeled. On a 356, it's quite similar. You have that strip around the bumper and body colour. So
yeah,
so inspiration from a 356.
Yeah, and it works looking at it like it, because the more I looked at it, there were things that were striking to me that were bold on your part, and to me they were a little off-putting. And the more that we're talking, the more that I'm thinking about this car, the more I can appreciate everything you did, especially when you tie it back into the 356, like the bumper accent with the color match bumper, because it looks like it was built to be like that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the work of someone that's put their thought into how can I make this better?
Yeah, I've sculptured the indicators. They're 356 indicators on the front, and I sculptured the bumper. And it's because I did indicators first, then went to fit the bumper. Then you got the indicators in the wrong place. So then, you know, a lot of these great ideas in hindsight come from, you know, not having foresight. Right. Probably.
But it's neat the way the whole car comes together. Now, interesting on the dash, because you are a coach trimmer. Most people on that dash, you would think in today's day and age would like double stitch that front seam on the dash. Now you just wrapped it like a traditional dash would have been wrapped, or how did you finish that dashboard?
The vinyl. Well, I've made the top and the bottom of the dash because they're very difficult to get hold of, and mine were okay. So I bonded them together, then went underneath them with plying on the top of alley. Built the pods in filler. And then the vinyl that I use for the car really stretches well with a bit of warm air. And it really, so the 2 pods above my Speedo are like little breasts. Yeah. And it just makes the car handle better, go faster, be better on fuel.
It's always better.
I'm always first off the ferry because of that dash.
Yeah.
And And doing something nice like that, it lends itself, and you want to do nice cap-ins. And I wanted the car to be really airtight as it drives down the road, so there's no whistling noises. And I've really paid a lot of attention to getting that nice.
Now, so you do your primary thing that you do is coach trimming, but restoring a car, there's a lot of things that you may or may not work with, which is, and you probably have to work with it, right? Like the trimming, the door sills, the rubbers, all that stuff. Because normally, if you do a headliner, so when someone takes a car to you and you do a headliner in a Ferrari, you've got to put all the trim pieces back, or you just hand it back to them and that's their problem, or you work the whole thing out.
But my business is a one-stop shop, so someone will bring a car in and then we'll have a good chat with them and find out what they want from their experience with us. So sometimes they want a car how it left the factory, which in Ferrari days was pretty raw.
Some poor quality.
In the 50s and 60s, yeah. You know, they were facing what most car builders were back then. You know, they had to get things out the door. Sometimes stitching was awry. And what they let out the door, if we were working to that standard now, would be laughed out of trim school. You know, so
that's crazy.
The standards have changed a lot, but you have to keep one foot in old traditions where things still look the same. So you can really improve stuff from the old days by using modern techniques, modern materials, better foams, but you can lose the character of interiors, from shrinking vinyl to stretching leather. So it's quite interesting how they went about it in the old days. And so we speak to our customers, find out exactly what they want. Some people want a car no one sat in, but then we would fix all the rubbers, do every part of the car. We make seat frames, plastic mouldings at work, seat foams, we do everything. You
recreate. I mean, if someone brings you, especially in the world in which you work with Ferraris, you may just have a seat frame to start with, no springs, no nothing. You've got to build everything out from there.
We've just done the most ultimate project in the world, which gets released next year, which was a three-seater auto union that they drew up in the 30s, but they never went on and built after a chap called Bird Rosemeyer died in a speed trial. And they scrapped this car. It was really the first ultimate sports car of the day, 16-cylinder, twin supercharge.
Oh, wow.
So the car will come to us with just the ideas of the day, and then we research the materials, go about how they would build the seat frames, and to make the interior work. So you'd slide across the outer seats to get into the centre on this 1930s supercar. So that's what we specialise in, and we really relish sort of taking on projects that other people would be out their depth on. Now,
that brings me to a good question, because in the industry now, everything is over-restored, right? Yeah. There was the level that it was done back then, and a lot of, I guess the ultimate thing people are hunting for is the most original car, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of how it went. But really, the restored cars are head and shoulders better quality than the unrestored cars. When you go to put a car back that's, let's say, a $500,000 Ferrari or whatever the case is, do you, in your opinion, being a coach trimmer, would you put the original, what did they use for the door panels? They use a
hardboard in the old days, which would have warped.
And what would you use today?
Depending on the customer, so we'll talk to them through that. You can get better hardboards that don't have the warpage, but we always use aluminium. And it's
so you'll make an aluminum core.
Yeah. So very early Ferraris were all aluminium from the 250 Tour de France and earlier. They're all aluminium. Then they went cheaper, so it's hardboard and then fiberglass and different aspects of what they are now. So I prefer to work in aluminium. It doesn't warp. It will outlast the customer. And you talk about finding original cars.
Yeah.
A customer will come to us with a very original car. The next customer may want a blue car with a white interior, and originality means nothing to them. It blows my mind. Volkswagen people seem to have the finger on a button. They'll collect old bits and they'll keep their car looking original and find it. But you don't have that with Ferrari owners. They wouldn't go around, a Ferrari Dino swap meet and find all these old bits and keep their car looking how it should.
Right.
They just don't do that. So very different sort of mentality of owner, how they come to restore their cars.
And some of and you being in this profession, if it's your car, you're always going to update the under fabrics, the under materials, the core pieces that give it longevity.
Two things I love. One of them, I like to have something looking original, old, how it was, and nurse that, or the best it can be. That middle road, it sits bad with me, where it kind of needs doing.
Right.
But But with my work, a lot of things we don't boast about is taking old Ferraris and making the interiors look old, and it enhances their value. It gives them a more interesting story. So we do a lot of that.
So you'll redo someone's interior and make it look like it's worn in.
Yeah, especially sort of around 50s Ferraris were mainly vinyl before they went over to leather, and so that's great fun to create a story with.
And so so what are some of the techniques you guys use to do that? Are these trade secrets, or what are some of the
I'll often ask the customer sort of if we're going back to June 1957, it was a Friday.
Right.
I like to find as much detail as when it rolled off the line. But basically, you'll make something as bad as it can be and then try and save it.
Really?
Yeah. And that's really as good as it can be. So there's different techniques, like you can tighten up the tension on a sewing machine. So when you stitch it, it gathers up the material and forms its own wrinkles.
Oh, really?
Heat's a great one. If you heat up vinyl, you can lose some of the grain in the vinyl and make it smoother. So it looks like it's been sun-beaten.
Really?
Setting things on fire. On vinyl, creosote, which you paint fences with, really eats into the vinyl and gives it a nice tarred finish. So if you're using white plastic, that's a really great one to pepper around the sides of the seats. And we've done all sorts of stuff, set things on fire. But it's how bad do you want your interior?
Right.
Because then you can do cigarette burns, all sorts of,
And people, and there's more value to a car that has an interior that looks like that?
Depending on the car.
Depending on the story of the car?
Yeah, we did one car which was an ice racer, a Ferrari's 50s car, which the interior caught fire on and vanished, went up to the sweet Lord. And so we recreated the interior before it caught fire. And all we had was a photograph of the original headrest. I'll show you photos off this, and then you can see for yourself. But and I love doing stuff like that. So it's my daily interiors are Ferrari Dinos, Ferrari Daytonas, short wheelbases, and I like being taken out of the normal. And you can really exercise.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to do that, and that's like, I guess that could be a whole other layer of car restoration, right? Completing the story or recreating the before picture just before the demise of this particular car. You know what I mean? I think that's another cool aspect, I think, that gives a lot of history. I just picked up recently a bus that was built in 1969. It was custom built, and for the time it was redone in 1969, a 1950s bus. And at the time it would have been done with the latest and greatest stuff in the 60s. And now today, here we are in the 2020s. And when I went and picked the interior pieces, most Volkswagen guys would have said, well, this would have been a stock VW color, that would have been this. I went from the standpoint of like, what would they have picked in the 70s? They would have picked probably this piece and that, and the colors didn't match exactly, and it was kind of a funky look. But that was the intention that I did when I had the upholstery done in this bus. And it looks kind of like, it doesn't look like anybody look at it and be like, wow, this is really, really refined. And it looks like in the 70s somebody made some decisions at an upholstery shop.
To walk past the car and you think, who'd have expect that?
Yeah.
And what were they on?
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And I think, I think that as we're talking about this, it just kind of opens my mind up to like, I could see a whole nother genre of cars being built that have a story, whether true or not, but just cool to have so much history. Because a good thing about a lot of these cars that that is missing sometimes at the show, if you can't sit down and talk with the owner, is the story of the car, where it came from, what it's been through, and how it's here. Especially if you see a car that's tattered sitting in there and you're like trying to figure out, well, what's this car doing here, what's so special about this car. But there's so much history to these things that it brings a lot of value to the visual aspect of the car. The same with talking to you about why you made some of the decisions on there, which I looked at and I said, I'm not a fan of this, I'm not a fan of that. 10 minutes later after a conversation, I thought, well, I get it. And getting it and putting my eyes from where you're standing in the world of looking at Italian cars, it all makes sense. Some of the inspiration, and I could see how it would tie over. But yeah, your car is really well done. I mean, it's a fantastic car. I like a lot of the little things that you did. I love more importantly than anything else is that it doesn't follow any pattern anybody's done before. And that's what I love the most about, especially in the Volkswagen world. People that
I guess that's difficult now. I haven't gone about my restoration with that in mind, but nearly every avenue's someone's gone down.
Yeah.
And I think my car sits aesthetically balanced.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm very pleased with it, and it drives beautifully.
And you drove it here.
Yeah.
And what do you have for drivetrain in it? You've got a
1776. I've got all the bits on there, but I can't remember them. I've glue sniffed since I was 13. I'm 51 now, and I can't remember the end of my own sentences. So you asked me details of what tyres and stuff.
No. But and so you've got a regular 4-speed transaxle in there.
Yeah.
Geared for freeway driving.
Yeah, it's got a tall 4th gear on there.
Is it on air or is it static?
No, standard. I wanted a car that was low enough to get over speed bumps and be able to drive around. I don't want to go up and down.
Right.
I don't know how you can dial in a nice handling car on air suspension. You probably can. But I just wanted something that I could have planted. It worked and doesn't need revisiting.
And I came here with Spike and those guys, and that was a 2 hour plus ride to here. And the freeways here are fairly nice, and it was a nice drive. The whole time I was driving, I wish I had my Type 34 finished to be driving that. But it's a wonderful looking car, and if it drives as good as it looks, I mean that's even better. One of the things that you do in the car that's really unique, probably the most unique thing that people are going to see. Well, there's a couple really unique things on your car. So you did some custom headrests.
Yeah. So I wanted something. I took my inspiration off of those off an Aston Martin DB4, which they kind of enclose the sides and the back of your head, and then I've cut out sort of ear holes, so they're hollow on the sides. But I've done that just by wrapping some cardboard around my head. I've got a massive head, and just drawing around my ears, and then I've mocked them up off a Ferrari Dino, the headrest stalks,
right,
and I built them in aluminium, and cloaked them in foam. And yeah, they work well.
Because I saw that was probably the first striking thing that I saw when I saw the car. I saw it coming. I thought, what in the world are those headrests? But
yeah,
now
you try and think, what car's that off? But
and now I'm looking at them. But I look at them and they're big enough to seem really large. But then when you look at them in comparison to the seat, they fit. Like everything makes sense, and it looks like it could have been. It couldn't have been an accessory from Volkswagen because it's not German enough. You know what I mean? It's got too much style to be German.
That's kind of you.
You get what I'm saying? It's more Italian than German for sure in the design.
Yeah.
But it's inspired from an English car, right? From the Aston Martin. But it's really it really has a cool look to it. Yeah.
Only the style, the proportions aren't. They're just from my own brain. And the T34 never came with headrests.
No.
So I've welded stanchions on there for that. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a great look. So the other thing that you have is on the front of a Type 34 Ghia, there's an embossing on the front hood that tapers back towards the cowl.
Yeah.
You've now did that to the roof, so the roof has that same body line.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if Carmen and Ghia ever got together and say that body line should go across the roof.
Right.
And maybe there's a disagreement. Maybe they never spoke about it, but at the heart of that, there would have been a cost to how much would that cost to fold that up. And the buckling of, that's quite a big deal to. So I made a little mohawk piece. What it backs down to is I spoke to my neighbour and I said, I'm thinking of doing this. And he said, it's not original. Don't do it. You ruin the value. And as he walked away, I thought, stuff him. So that night, I cut it out. And I was really pleased with myself. And then I had to go about making the fillet that fits in. And I remember welding it. And I've just learnt to weld everything very, very low. That was MIG'd in, just one tick at a time, because you put too much heat in that, you can ruin your roof very easily. So I had an airline, welding it, and then blowing it, cooling it immediately, and really took my time doing that, and it went in perfectly. There was hardly any filler, just a little skim around the welded edges.
Yeah, it looks.
It went in well.
Again, it's one of those things you see, you're like, what was he thinking?
Yeah.
And then if you take a step back and you kind of put yourself in the vision of what that car is supposed to be, and it looks, it fits really, it looks pretty, it's definitely the only car done like that. And it looks really unique. I don't know where I'm at on it as far as feeling loving or hating it. And
I'm
it's
the same.
Again, but it's not my car, but I can appreciate it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I look at it and go, well, it makes sense. And I think it's kind of cool, and it adds another layer of different to the car. Because, again, in this world of, when that car came in, I'm a little colorblind, and there was that one and that one. I said, why do they have two gold Type 34s here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yours is a gold green, more green than gold. The other one's kind of a champagne color. but yours is definitely completely different. And I think it was really, really unique about the roof. I think it works, you know. And then the other unique aspects, you've got you fitted some a third brake light to the car.
Yeah, because the car sits low, and
really
I've got
low.
Two little girls, and when we go out in it, if a truck's following us, I like to have a brake light up high, and that all runs into the same headline in perforation, so it matches perfectly.
And you've got underlit interior everywhere throughout the car, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I put an LED strip. It starts at the front sill, it runs underneath the dash, up the A post, round the whole of the headlining, back down the C post, and through both of my sills.
And
so
that's
at night when you put the light on, it really shines up the interior. You can change the colours.
And that's one LED strip.
Yeah, 20 foot long.
20 foot long, and it runs up the entire perimeter of the headliner.
Yeah.
Down both A
20
pillars.
meters. I can't remember that. Yeah.
Down both A pillars,
Yeah.
across the dash underneath, and then under the door sills.
Yeah.
So it lights up from the door sills up like a modern car.
So underneath the dash, it's lit down.
Mm-hmm.
The sills light outwards, and the headlining lights. It just shines up the whole.
So is it under the carpet on the door sills?
No, I've run it along the aluminium sills, the trims.
Okay.
I've drilled holes all the way along those, so it shines out from the sill. It's the top of the.
You're
sills.
crafty. You're a crafty one.
Yeah.
I might borrow that. I might borrow
Yeah,
that
have
move.
it.
Don't worry about it. But I love when people bring something different to the hobby, and it pushes the hobby a little harder. You know what I mean? It makes people think like, you know what? I thought about doing it, and some people aren't bold enough to take a step out and do something on their own because they're concerned about what their friend might say or what your neighbor said. Oh, don't do it. That ruins the originality. And then you go, yep, I think I like it.
But looking around the show today, you can just see there's lots of creative minds.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the heartbeat of Volkswagen, is that everyone can do something to the car. They're so workable and fun and unique to show that person's character off. Whether they're stoners or they're originalists, you know, you can really see the car represents their soul.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic car. It's done really well. I love the center exhaust for the rear. I mean, that's another.
A chap called Mikey from Volkshouse made that, and that guy's work is second to none.
Yeah,
he's a fantastic.
And who built the motor for it, the drivetrain?
I bought that, but my friend Jez Parsons at Carrera Performance stripped it all down, reworked it, and he's put an external oil filter on there, which is quite difficult because on a Volkswagen there's a Beetle, there's a place to tap into.
Right.
On a pancake engine, he tapped into the front, and there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot,
so,
with the fan and everything.
Yeah, so Jez Parsons at Carrera Performance has done amazing work in making that car drive nicely.
Yeah, I really just think it's there's so many bits to talk about. I mean, you've got pull knobs on the dash instead of the push button for 64, which would have had push button dash, and you've changed it to some pull knobs, and you've got the indicator lights that actually flash through the end of the knob.
Yeah, that's on my hazards. I've made them machined them up in brass, so they match the little tips that are in the speedo and rev counter gauges in the clock. So they're also on the outside of the wheels and the centre of my steering wheel and on the rear quarters.
Yeah, I think there's so many little unique details, and I've got a video that I'll be putting out with this guys that you guys will be able to see. There'll be a link in the description below where I'm just kind of doing a walk around and showing you on this whole car. But it's a phenomenal car. I mean, you've outdone yourself. I mean, again, I can't give you enough props for doing something different and not being. We need more people taking leaps of faith, because in the Volkswagen world, in the 80s, it was all everybody be as different as you can within this framework
of cow look.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And we're now at a point where everything is so far over restored that it's getting kind of crazy, the level of detail they're putting. And so now it's like, sure, everybody can get polished nut bolts and washers and things like that to that detail, but I don't think I've ever seen an interior quite like yours it has to take a trim worker to be able to do that type of material first for the headliner, because it's like a textured fabric for the headliner. So there's no screw. You can't stretch that out.
No.
It's got to be money the first time you put it in. And I think maybe anybody that's got any experience working with any of these pieces knows, like, yeah, this guy really set himself up for the hardest job possible with the seats. But the interior is beautiful. I like the way you've got a hidden pocket in the rear quarter. Now, is that pocket that's inside the quarter channel, is that attached to the door panel cover, or is it a separate piece?
I've welded up some aluminium boxes that just slide in there beautifully, and I've bonded them in. And
so now you've got storage panels inside.
It was for both of my daughters. They've got little teddy bears, and they wanted to play. So the whole family's taken a.
And you, I mean, clearly you drive the car, so you know worried about driving
it's
it.
Stone chipped already. I've had people at shows sort of walk past and bang their cameras into it, and but there, my father, who I love to bits, he bought a new KTM motocross bike, put it in first gear, dropped the clutch, and he wheelied it, fell off the back, snapped the back mudguard, and he said to me, all his goggles were steamed up, and he said, "Rourky, they're only new once." So that's kind of my thing. It's restored, it was perfect, and now I want to mess it up.
No, I mean, and that's part of the story of the car, right? It gets restored, and then it starts its new life. It's new life as a purpose-built vehicle that's an expression of your talent, your skill, your creativity, and then it's also it has a utilitarian function to create memories for you and your family as your kids get to sit in the car and be like, "Daddy, why is everybody pointing at us and giving us the thumbs up?" And then you're like, because you're now going to be a car
Kids
kid.
Don't get it yet. They don't understand it. You know, if I take them to school, they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I love embarrassing my kids. I was put on this planet for that.
Yeah, that's it.
But they don't realise they're cool.
Yeah, no, but the funny part is as they get older, they'll look back and be like, "Yeah, my dad was super cool. He was even cooler than I thought he was, and he used to embarrass me."
Yeah, well, I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah, it'll happen. Listen, I've got some older kids, and what they used to think was kind of lame that I would do, they look back at it now and think like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, Dad, you were wearing high tops before everybody was wearing high tops. You were wearing Vans before everybody. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing." So
go for your wardrobe.
Yeah. So it's fun, and being able to. I remember I finished my first bus, and I was at a car show, and my kids were hopping over the seats back and forth, and a guy walks by and he goes, "Hey, your kids are jumping all over the inside of your bus." I said, "Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah,
go for it. Like it's all fixable.
Yeah.
It's all whatever. It's like let the kids have a good time, and build it and start the new chapter in the life of that car."
I love seeing other people's cars when they've got mirrors underneath them and everything's perfect underneath and chrome. That's their thing. But mine's all undersealed and waxed like you can't believe. And I wanted to build a car I could float if I needed to get home and the ferry wasn't working. I could paddle that across the channel because it's so well put together.
Yeah.
And when I bought the car, it was bodily straight, but rusted in all the corners you'd expect from owning one of those cars.
Sure.
So at every point from the back end, I've built drain tubes in it, so water runs out the back light straight onto the ground, and done everything I could think of that would aid the life as it goes forward. So any places where water can capture, I've got them draining out or deleted them. No,
I think it's great. I'm excited. I mean, one question I have for you, for a guy who works on Ferraris all day, what made you grab a Volt? What kicked off your second? Because this is now your second round at the VW World, right? Like, how recently? You kind of put it on hold for a little bit, right?
Well, my first car was I've restored a couple of Volkswagen Beetles when I was a kid growing up. Then I got a 59 356. Then I've done a 356B, and now my perfect garage would probably be a low light Carmen Ghia convertible.
Oh, really?
And the Type 34. That'd be me done.
You do convertible tops too?
Yeah. But I'm looking at, I like the variants that are here, and I'm looking at, other cars, and, there's some great takes on cars here. But my first, I think I like the Volkswagens. It's financially 4 cylinders, it's not 12.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to blow up a 12-cylinder Ferrari and not be able to fix it. That's just outside my thinking.
Yeah.
And a Volkswagen Beetle will always get you home.
Yeah.
Don't matter what you do to it. I've snapped clutch cables and throttle cables, but fixed at the side of the road, and It's a great learning car.
No, it's the car you build your confidence on, and you have to be resourceful if you're going to own one of those, because they're gonna let you down when you least expect it. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the adventure of owning one, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you got any other cars planned to be built in the future? Anything on the?
No, I'm going to let my wallet recover.
Yeah.
And get its breath back. And I built this car while my girlfriend was going through breast cancer, and then she's gone through colon cancer.
Oh.
So we're at just that point. She's managed to kick both of those under the table.
Well, fantastic.
So we're going to concentrate on family for a little while.
Well, and God bless her, and hopefully everything keeps moving forward.
Yeah, she'll be here tomorrow, so I'll introduce you to her.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I tell you, I'm really impressed with the car. Now, one question. This is what you do for work, right? If someone brought you that car and you had to charge them for the time that you spent in that interior.
I've got 2 people at the moment wanting to buy it who haven't, to my mind, they haven't been to see the car or drive it. They've just seen it in pictures, and they've saying, can I buy your car?
Pictures. I'm telling you now, from a guy who's seen it in person, I don't think pictures do that car justice. No. If you see that car and look at the quality, the fit and finish on the interior of that car.
But to me, if you wanted to buy a car, go over there, drive it, look around it, get it up on a ramp, look underneath it. What would that cost? And I know there's kind of a stigma attached to people wanting big money for their cars. There's so much gone into that car, it's almost unsellable.
No, 100%.
Someone said, I want an interior the same as that. What does that cost? And I mean, you could start at 30 grand in terms of
labor and time.
Just the steering wheel and those seats. And there's a lot of other stuff. It's, do I want to do it for the, I'm not into money.
You're not doing it you're not building it to resell it.
Nah.
Yeah.
No, money moves me, but just not very far.
Right.
And
well, and it'd have to be someone to give you enough money that you could recoup, your wallet could recoup, and it would give you enough seed money to go find the next adventure.
Where do you think that price could be?
For that car? That's probably the most bespoke car I've seen built like that as far as the additional work. I mean, it's a 6-figure car. There's no question in my mind. I mean, especially if it runs, drives, but understanding the build quality that's put behind it, I think is the key. I mean, just the amount of time that you have in that interior. You know what I mean? Just the fit and finish, the extra details. I mean, it's a 6-figure car in my opinion, no question. I mean, you're talking about how rare the Type 34 Karmann Ghia is to begin with, and we had a discussion about this. I mean, they're a really limited production car, completely undervalued, and even selling like a nice one today, a nice driver restored sells for about 30 grand. I had someone offer me one that was freshly restored. I talked to a guy a few weeks ago, but it's been restored to a Volkswagen spec. I would say this is Italian sports car spec, like bespoke Italian sports car spec. So it's a higher level. It's difficult to do that. Again, I sold my car, and everybody said I was crazy asking the money I was asking for it. But I said on this car, and you can't build a car to those levels anymore. For cheap. It's just not happening.
Was that quite a standard car?
Which one?
In terms of the one you sold for 70?
No, I had a 2.6 liter fuel injected Type 4. I had a Berg 5-speed, but you got to remember I sold it 2017, and since then the market has shifted on a lot of these Volkswagens, especially when people are starting to understand the scarcity and rarity of these cars. So, I mean, my car had a lot of bespoke parts on it, automatic tire sprayers. The windshield washer fluid was connected to a T-bar that squirted the tires for burnouts. Line lock. It had quite a bit of detail stuff. Again, I'd spent 90 grand on the car building it, and to get 70 when I got it at the time that I got it, if I had it today, would I sell it today? One of the reasons maybe that I sold it was that A, I personally didn't do a lot of the work, and B, doing the stuff that I did, it was such a nice car. It was a little frustrating to drive because I like to drive them, and people, and then I feel bad because we're like, you drive that car like a jerk, and I'm like, oh, no, I drive it I drive it like I paid for it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's I mean, you got to find that I don't think when someone sees that car for what it is, it's one thing to offer money not seeing the car in person, seeing it in the magazine and deciding, hey, what would you like for that car?
Yeah. But I think that's an obscene number to talk about, that you need to come and see the car.
No. Well, and what I'm saying is like anybody offering it without seeing it is just throwing a number out there. And in my opinion, maybe the person doesn't deserve the car.
Yeah, agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got to come see the car. I had a guy offer me what I was selling a car for. And I just kind of looked at him and said, what are you going to do with these? He says, I'm put it in my beach house. I thought, I don't have a beach house and you don't have a bus.
Yeah.
And it's just, just something in me just thought, no, just not, now it's not for sale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because again, it wasn't about money. It was more about maybe this will lead to the next thing that I did. And then I just looked at what I had and thought, yeah, maybe I needed to come to this realization that I didn't want to sell that car. And I still own that car to this day. And I had a guy offer me big money for a car before they were big money because I was asking big money. And I just decided, no, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep it. And then I still have it to this day. So I think if the car leaves your stewardship, I think it's going to be someone that's going to see the car, appreciate everything that you've done to it, and will make an offer to you where you will not be able to resist it.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion. Because it's not, again, you didn't build it for a financial gain. You built it out of passion. And you can't replicate the labor that goes into building something based on passion.
Also, the time you haven't spent with your kids and family, you've been rolling around underneath it, getting covered in shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when I see other people's Type 34 projects, I've got shown one yesterday by an English chap who just bought a lovely car that needs a lot of work. I think time is so valuable. We're not on this planet for long.
Nope. And you realize that. Yeah.
Sell it on.
you realize that. And the older we get, we're the same age. The older we get, the more we think, maybe I'll buy it done and I'll armor all the tires and I'll enjoy it. Yeah. I'll drive it with my kids and enjoy it.
I've never had 25 grand.
Right.
I've never had to go and buy that. I've always just got there, just done this, just done that. And it'd be lovely to restore a car, have that money aside, and then you can fulfill your dreams.
But that's what makes us Volkswagen people, right? Because we have that the capability to dream, and the ability and skill to maybe put it into action, and then we start weighing things, and kids change things too. Kids start making us realize kids are a visual marker of time that's gone by.
You see it's going. Yeah.
As soon as you look at a picture from a year ago, you look at your kid, you look at the picture, you look at your kid, you look at the picture, like, man, time is flying too fast.
When you're a kid, you're looking forward all the time. When I'm going to be 18, when I'm driving a car, first boys' holiday, getting a job, losing my cherry. Yeah. And when you get to our age, it's all looking back.
It is. It's trying to slow down time as much as you can. So that's the reason I'm here. It's the reason I'm here with my boy, and we came for his 18th birthday just to come up here.
Buy a Volkswagen, slow down time,
and just come here, look around, and just take our time, hang out with some friends, make some memories, because that's what you're making while we're here. Yeah. So hey, Rourky. Yeah. Great chatting with you, man.
Bill, this has been a lovely podcast. It's the first one I've ever done naked.
Listen,
it's kind of you.
Well, what I'm surprised about is I was completely calm during the whole thing. And, with you being naked, I was a little off-put by it, but I think it's fantastic.
But you leading the way, I thought that was a marvelous thing to relax your guests. Yeah. It's a wonderful.
Well, listen, that's what the Asian girl's for. But, we won't get into the details.
Lovely talking to you. And anyone who listens and finds this interesting, I love you.
Great. And if they want to get a hold of you, where do they get a hold of you at?
Coachtrimmers.com.
Coachtrimmers.com.
Business website.
Perfect. Hey, and they want to follow you on Instagram. You got an Instagram?
I've got a personal one, which I wouldn't recommend anyone did that. That's Rourky O'Rourke, I believe. And my business one is Coach Trimmers or O'Rourke Coach Trimmers, or something like that. Yeah.
I love it. I'm sure they'll be able to find you, but I'll post some pictures and I'll tag you in it.
Cheers, dude. It'd be nice talking to you.
Thank you. Well, I hope you like that podcast. If you like that podcast, make sure you share this with some friends. If you haven't shared with some friends, that's the way we grow this podcast, is organically through friend-to-friend connections to listen to some good VW talk. So I appreciate you guys for listening, and hopefully you guys will share this with your friends. If you want a shout out on the podcast, pick up some merch. We got sweatshirts in the store right now, so pick up some merch. Wintertime's coming, so you want to get some cozy Let's Talk Dub sweatshirts. You pick up some merch, get a shout out. And if you leave a review, you get a shout out. So until next week, guys, later.